I am noticing some particularly concerning behaviour. Not so much about sharing opinions that don't match with my opinions. I don't have an issue with that, unless I've specifically asked you to stick to the topic so we can talk about the broader issue or issues. No, this goes much further beyond just having an opinion. I'm not going to say which channel exactly that this came from. I will say though, it's things like this that have caused everyone to lose access to this trial. Let me take you back a little bit in time before Judge Gull and remind you why things got sealed and why Richard Allen got moved to a different facility, because it seems like many of you have forgotten.
Kelsey German, Libby's sister, posted this. If you have a minute today, please sign this petition to keep the probable cause document sealed.
And while the future of the judge in Allen's criminal case now appears to be decided, information on what led to Allen's arrest is still under wraps. Those records are still sealed by the court. Court filings did reveal, however, that when the defendant appeared for his initial hearing, he was wearing protective gear. Judge Diener writes that was not to protect Allen from the court, but rather that protection was to protect the defendant from the public.
We now know court records show Allen's initial bond was set at $20 million. We have an online case summary showing past and upcoming court dates. We have a case number, so the public can now follow details and events in the case. Judge Benjamin Diener granted a request by 13 News to release all those details. And following our questions, the court also posted this notice, setting a date for a public hearing for the judge to determine whether important records in the case will remain under seal.
Wait, let's just read this document and see if it complies with state law, or at least any state law is quoted in it. It says, a public hearing will be conducted pursuant to Indiana Code Section 514.3.5.5 and Indiana Rules of Court, Rules on Access to Court Records, Rule 6, November 22nd, 2022 at 9 a.m. in the Carroll Circuit Court. It goes on to say, parties or members of the general public will be permitted to testify and submit written briefs subject to reasonable time constraints imposed by the court. A decision to seal all or part of a public record must be based on findings of fact and conclusions of law, showing that the remedial benefits to be gained by effectuating the public policy of the state declared in Section 1 of this chapter are outweighed by a preponderance of the evidence by the person seeking the scaling of that record that 1. A public interest will be secured by sealing the record, 2. Dissemination of the information contained in the record will create a serious and imminent danger to that public interest, 3. Any prejudicial effect created by dissemination of the information cannot be avoided by any reasonable method other than sealing the record. 4. There is a substantial probability that sealing the record will be effective in protecting the public interest against the perceived danger. And 5. It is reasonably necessary for the record to remain sealed for a period of time. Sealed records shall be unsealed at the earliest possible time after the circumstances necessitating the sealing of the records no longer exists. So, for those of you arguing that there's no state law that gives judges the power to seal records like this, I'm going to say there is. Whether it's constitutional or not is another question. But there does seem to be state law that does allow the sealing of documents under certain circumstances. What kind of danger might be involved with this case? The public might try to harm the defendant or go after his wife and his children, which they did. Or how about doxing the wife and the daughter of the judge who's presiding over the case? I would say yes. I wouldn't like to be in any of their positions. How does the judge feel?
A new court document showed Judge Benjamin Diener recused himself in the case, which the Indiana Supreme Court confirmed earlier this afternoon. In court filings, Judge Diener writes he was attempting to ignore the maelstrom of interest from the public, saying there was already content about his family on YouTube, including photos. Judge Diener writes, the public's bloodlust for information before it exists is extremely dangerous. And when the public peddles misinformation with reckless abandon, we all are not safe.
Authorities also say the public's appetite for information from the case is also dangerous. Investigative producer Barbara McDonald. So one of the authorities used the word bloodlust.
That's right. That was the judge in the case. Both the judge and the sheriff are citing the high-profile nature of this case, creating safety and security concerns, not only for Richard Allen, but for everyone involved in the case. And the extensive media coverage is feeding that. Now, the judge, so yesterday, the sheriff asked the judge to take Richard Allen from county custody and put him into state custody for his safekeeping. The judge agreed with that, and in the judge's order, he wrote, the public's bloodlust for information before it even exists is extremely dangerous. Now, the emphasis here is how the judge wrote this out, all caps. All public servants administering this action do not feel safe and are not protected. And as you mentioned, Robin, Richard Allen was removed yesterday from county custody. He is now in the custody of the Indiana Department of Corrections, where I imagine he'll stay for the duration of his trial.
Any behind-the-scenes talk about what led the judge to say that?
Well, the judge did reveal some more in that order. Later in the day, he did recuse himself from the case, so he is no longer the judge in the case. But while he was the judge, this is what he wrote, talking about just the intense interest that his office is receiving. It is known that YouTube already hosts content regarding family members of this judicial officer, meaning the judge himself, including photos. That had to have been a scary moment for him to find out that his family was already being made into content on YouTube. Now, the Indiana Supreme Court got involved immediately when he recused himself. They have already appointed a new judge. That is Fran Gull. She is from Fort Wayne.
So, dangerous behaviour by people online ended up scaring the bejesus out of this poor guy, sent him packing. Now you all got a new judge and you're all down on her. You want her to go packing as well. How many judges do you think you're going to get, guys? How much information are you going to get access to if this is the way you're going to behave? When you go after the family members of victims, or the staffers who are just doing their jobs, or their families, how are you setting the example of responsible adults who can handle the information that's under seal? Contrary to what you all think, this is not like the Karen Read case. The cops in this case didn't kill anybody. And as I've already said multiple times now, Judge Gull did not release photographs of slain naked victims who are underage, nor did the cops. And we've also come to find out that those particular photographs that were not meant to be disseminated were indeed disseminated. Multiple YouTubers have seen them. It's this type of buffoonery that has caused things to be sealed, that has caused the court to determine that there's a danger, not just to the victims' families or the defendant, but also everybody involved in the court case. Not only can I not defend this kind of behaviour, I'm going to call it out. It's everybody else's fault that YouTube creators are doing this and creating the danger that the courts are worried about. Why is it not the YouTubers' fault? Why aren't you telling the creators that you watch that what they're doing is what's destroying everybody's freedom of access to the information? Instead, you're all over here on my channel, up my ass, because I'm sticking by the victim's family. Oh, Ozzy, I'm so disappointed in you. For what? For understanding that this is what the family asked for? They developed a petition and got people to sign it, specifically to prevent this kind of crap. And guess what else? There's not a single law tuber on YouTube that's going to support this kind of crap. I can already put my money on it. Andrea has already denounced it. There's no way on God's green earth that Bob and Ali condone it. You don't have to take a position for or against either side to understand it's wrong, and it's the very thing that is causing access to be rescinded from the public. Yeah, I know, adulting can be hard for some.